Right now, we are joined by Mark Hood and Ray Basri. Good morning, guys. How are you?
Good morning. How you doing, Big J?
Excellent.
Good morning.
Good morning. So we've got Mark. Mark, you were on Flight 1549. Is that correct?
No, that's correct.
And Ray, you were one of the first responders?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you're both very familiar with the situation, obviously. A year ago today. Does it seem like a year? I was just thinking it seems like it was just a few months ago.
Every day it seems like it was a couple of months ago.
Yeah, I can imagine that. Mark, tell me, what was the crash like? I mean, explain it from somebody that was on the plane. What happened?
It was catastrophic and it was redemptive, both. When the bird hit us, when the bird hit the left engine, I was looking out the window, so I was able to see the engine, so to speak, flame out. And then the other engine obviously went out at the same time, and the whole plane was very, very quiet. And there was just a tremendous calm and peace about the plane. No one was screaming, no one was yelling. And as we turned left and banked over the George Washington Bridge, it became very apparent that we weren't going to get back to LaGuardia. And so I think a number of passengers started to comfort one another. I know I reached over and held my seatmate's hand and looked her in the eye and said, "We're going to crash." And then we lost altitude, and for me, I said my prayers, and said my last prayers I expected to utter as a man inhabiting this world, and planned the next conversation I had with God to be taking place face to face. And then about 30 feet off the water, Captain Sullenberger uttered the words, "Brace for impact," and you could hear the sounds of the cockpit computer saying, "Pull up, pull up, pull up." And then the flight attendants were yelling, "Brace, brace, brace." And then we basically hit the water, skidded to a stop, and people started streaming down the aisles, heading out the exit aisles, heading out the front hatches. And at that point, we mobilized people, started getting them out the door, got into the rescue rafts. I went out the front left door, started pulling people in. There were people swimming in the water. Started getting them into the raft, making sure that those who looked like they were going to go into hypothermic shock or those who were suffering the worst were surrounded by warm bodies. Mm-hmm. And then we started evacuating them off the wings and out of the rafts, and putting them on barges so they could get to Ray, where Ray could start triaging them with his expert medical care and keeping people alive. That's
Ray. I mean, good transition into you there, Ray. I mean, you've been doing this for a while, right?
Yes, I've been a volunteer firefighter 22 years, and I was at 9/11 and Katrina. And this miracle on the Hudson, I think it was, God's way of giving me back a little bit of positive reinforcement that, what we all do to try to help others sometimes comes out just great and, rebuilds your trust and confidence.
I can imagine it's surprising, though. And like you said, I mean, you worked 9/11. I mean, you worked Katrina, devastating, horrible events. I'm sure when you guys got the call that a plane had got down in the Hudson, it probably sounded like it might have ended, like those days where you go home and it's just tragedy on your hands. This one, I mean, it seemed to turn out really well.
It sure did. And, as I was driving over to the west side to where the plane was, I was thinking of all the things that I might have to, prepare myself to treat as a physician, and to walk in there and have a very serene environment in the passenger ferry terminal where the passengers were brought. It was very quiet, very subdued, and it was just a remarkable experience.
Excellent. And today, what are you guys doing to commemorate it today? Anything special?
Yeah, we're gonna ride the ferries out at 3:31 this afternoon to the middle of the Hudson where the plane came to rest, with Captain Sullenberger, the passengers, and the first responders, and have a moment of silence out there in remembrance.
That's very nice. What do you say to Sully, Mark? Have you talked to him after this?
Yeah, I have. You mean, what do I say to him after I tell him he's one of my favorite guys?
Yeah, I'm just thinking, a guy that a lot of people credit, most of it, of the way it turned out to him. I mean, how do you say, dude, thank you so much?
Well, that's just exactly what you say. Part of the beauty of what we've done in the Brace for Impact book is relate the stories to to bottom on what took place and internalized them, or in the internal stories. I've introduced my family to Captain Sullenberger. I mean, he's met my son, my daughter, and my wife, and I think that's probably the most interesting way to say thank you to him when he looks at the number of individuals from extended families that didn't have to go through the mourning and loss of a loved one who was on that plane.
Yeah, I guess that's a good way to do it too. And the book Brace for Impact, tell us a little bit more about that. Is it stories from people that were on the plane, from the first responders? How's it put together?
Yeah, it's basically everybody knows what happened that day from a standpoint of looking at the plane that crashed in the Hudson. But Brace for Impact is a cathartic, insightful look at the lives of 25 passengers and first responders who lived through it. And in some cases, you get to read the inside story of the impact on their lives, which has a positive component to it in the future. You get to see what they brought to the crash from their past. And it's basically like a breath of fresh air and goodness on people who functioned well together in a disaster situation. And it's extremely enlightening on what took place that day individually.
Very, very interesting. The book is called Brace for Impact. Mark, we're so glad to hear that you're okay and life is going well for you. And Ray, keep up the good work. And it's obviously a good thing that you guys are doing out there. And thank you guys so much for being on the show this morning.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
The Big J Show. Weekday mornings from 6 till 10 on Billings' #1 hit music station, Hot 101.9.